welcome to episode 78 of the podcast Celebrating Differences. We are an initiative of WOW Inc. WOW is WAAO and stands for We Are All One. So we talk to interesting people about our differences and why that makes life interesting. But we also recognize that all of us are part of the whole, and that's what makes life work. So let's go talk to Mubeen Khumawala, who is a neighbor here in Miller, and he is observing Ramadan during this month. Here we go. I'm going to talk with Mubeen Khumawala.
Yeah.
Okay. And we put out a call in our neighborhood and said, is there someone out here who is celebrating Ramadan? Because I grew up in the Episcopal Church in rural Louisiana, and I really didn't know a lot of people who were part of the Islam faith. So wanted to find out for me, but also for everybody else. So let's see what we've got. Yeah. So Mubeen,
yeah,
welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, it was so cool that you did it, and we've had so much trouble getting together.
Yeah,
you know, kind of, oops, ouch, okay, good. So where were you born?
So I was born in Houston, Texas. Born and raised.
Born and raised in Houston, Texas. Okay, you're a Texan.
Yeah.
What year were you born?
1986.
1986. Okay, yeah, I got to Austin in '87. Yeah. So yeah, nice. But you're a native. I'm not. Yeah. You are celebrating Ramadan now?
Yeah.
Okay. I made an assumption, and we put it out there. Yeah. I didn't offer you anything to eat and drink when you walked in, because I assume in Ramadan you're fasting.
Appreciate it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me what Ramadan is.
So Ramadan itself technically is like the 9th month of the Islamic calendar.
Okay.
And it is the month that Muslims have been prescribed to fast in from dawn till sunset. And generally speaking, it's also the holiest month of the year because, as many scriptural things have said, that the Quran was revealed during the month of Ramadan, which is the holy book for Muslims. Your good deeds are multiplied during this month. It is also said that, so the gates of heaven are open in this month. The gates of hell are closed in this month. The devils are chained in this month, as it means to exert more and more energy for Muslims to gain a closeness towards God. So it's not just a restriction from your food and your drink and your during daylight hours, but it's actually like a means for you to exert yourself as much as possible, to be as devoted as possible, and to live out your best characteristics you can during this month as well.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I got to thinking as you're saying that about Lent, and we do 40 days of giving up something.
Yep.
Not giving up all of it. So it's but it's interesting. So Judaism came first, then Christianity, and then Islam. And it's interesting to see what parts are in the different holy works.
Yeah. So even the verse which talks about fasting being prescribed for Muslims, it says, "Oh, you who believe fasting has been prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you." Okay. So even as a listener, if you're listening, you're like, fasting, wow, I don't know if I can do that. And then God says, well, it was prescribed on those before you as well, so that you may become mindful of God as well. So
okay. That's a great thought, isn't it? Mindful of God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not going to get into the discussion of different gods.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of travel in the Far East, and they have polytheistic beliefs, and that gets very interesting because there's gods everywhere.
Yeah.
In nature. Yeah. So you are observing Ramadan, and what's the end of Ramadan? That's coming up like the 21st?
Yeah, the 21st. So Ramadan finishes, now it's a lunar calendar, so it's 29 or 30 days. And so scheduled to finish on the April 20th, and then April 21st is the day of Eid, which is our, it's a festival day. So we go for prayers in the morning, and then after that you're not allowed to fast on Eid. You actually are prohibited to fast on Eid. So you're supposed to eat. You're supposed to give thanks to God for all that He has blessed you with as well. So
Okay. Okay. And so talk to me about where your belief comes from. I assume your family has been...
So I was born Muslim and grew up as a Muslim. And so I've been observing Ramadan, as a kid, like you didn't fast. And then, slowly but surely, my parents used to, when I was 8 or so, I did my first fast. And then you get as you get older, I think my first year I did like 5, second year I did like 17, and then by my third year I was able to do the entire 30 days or so. And then like my parents would encourage me in whatever way they possible to get me to fast. So it was a lot of fun as well. So
I saw something the other day about a number of NBA basketball players who are celebrating Ramadan, and I thought, yeah, sure, right. No, they are fasting and refraining from drinking water and still playing basketball at that level. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, growing up, I remember Hakeem Olajuwon, who was based in Houston as well, right, and at the peak of his career. So just seeing him being able to like watch him on TV during a day game and not eating or drinking or anything like that, and people coming in and still performing at such a peak level was pretty admirable, and also just gave me a role model to look up to as well.
Okay, I assume you're married.
Yes,
I've
married.
seen a picture of you with
my wife.
Okay.
We have 2 kids as well, so a 3-year-old and an almost 9-month-old. So
almost 9 months. That keeps you up at night.
Yes, more so my wife than me, but yes.
Okay. We were looking you up to find out a little bit about who you were. Yeah. And you work with a company out of Houston? Are you still with them? I saw you were.
So I just recently joined a nonprofit based out of Houston. It's a college access nonprofit called Emerge. So we work with high achieving low income students in Houston to help them get into the best colleges and universities around the nation.
And how long has Emerge been around?
So Emerge has been around for a little more than a decade. And currently we serve 5 school districts within Houston itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've got an interesting title.
Yeah. So our goal is to grow the organization further. There's been increased demand within Houston itself, to be able to serve a lot more students. And then also there's been a demand to increase it, not just within Houston, but also across the nation as well, because the number of students from low-income backgrounds that are able to get into the nation's top colleges and universities, that are able to graduate, is so staggeringly low. And yet you find talent in every zip code. And so because you're able to, we should be able to correct this issue where that not your income shouldn't determine whether you can get into the best college or university, and so on and so forth. And so that's what we're trying to work towards.
So how do you find your clients?
Yeah, so students, I guess, would be our clients. So we work with school districts directly. Currently speaking, right now, like if you were to go to a specific high school, the ratio of students to counselors is around 400 to 1, right? Which is very, very difficult for anyone trying to get into college. And then the number of barriers that are there to not only get into college, but to matriculate, and then to be able to understand how do you pay for college, what scholarships may be available, and so on. The idea that, so we reduced that ratio from around 400 to 1 to around 70 to 1. We worked with them.
Still not enough.
So students apply.
It's
a step. And we provide the best in-class college counseling. So we have program managers that are dedicated to work with students at those school districts, work with them on course selection, work with them on test prep support as well that we have. And then our signature program that we do is that we take many of these students, or actually all of these students, on a week-long trip to go visit colleges around the nation. So students have the choice between visiting colleges in Southern California or Massachusetts or upstate New York or Ohio, a mix of both your regular traditional research universities as well as your liberal arts colleges. And so we work with them. So students are, for the first time, sometimes students have gotten on the plane for the first time. Sometimes students have left the city of Houston for the first time, right? And so And many of these students have never even set foot on a campus. So it's just a much more eye-opening experience, and to be able to see like, hey, not only do these colleges want you, but they're also willing to give you almost a full ride to get to college. 40% of our students graduate with zero debt from college, which allows them to get, jobs and much better, opportunities for them and their families as well.
So how do you pick the students that you work with?
Yeah, so we pick a number of different factors. One is that we look at, your regular things such as like grades, courses, whatnot. But the one thing that I think comes across in the application is that whether the student has grit. And that's something that is less...
Okay, how do you measure grit?
How do you measure grit? So that's just through applications, that's through recommendations, that's through interviews and whatnot as well. Because we are going on a 3-year journey with these students. We choose them, we select them in their sophomore year of high school, and then we work with them throughout their sophomore, junior, and senior year of high school. And then we also want to make sure that they are not only getting into college, but we also have a college success team that not only is dedicated towards students persisting in college. Mm-hmm. So many times students will struggle being far away from home for the first time, not understanding how to access different resources on college. If their laptop breaks down, who do they go to for help, whatnot. So we have emergency funds that will help students with that. The class I was just in a meeting yesterday. So if you think about the class of 2017 that graduated from high school from Houston itself, their first semester, they had Hurricane Harvey that hit them. Then you have students that weren't sure whether they should go or not. Sometimes you might have to go to like Waterville, Maine for college. How do you get there? Especially with your family's house being drowned and whatnot. Then the other thing 2 years later comes down in their junior year of college is COVID hits. And so how do you navigate that as well? So just the amount of hurdles that many of our students have to face, our goal is to be able to correct that and make it a level playing field for all students to be able to succeed.
Wow. And you've been with Emerge a year, 2 years?
No, I've actually just joined in February of 2023. So just
wow.
Less than 2 months actually. So
how'd you get to Austin?
Long story short, both my wife and I were in Milwaukee in 2020, and we were looking for jobs. My wife had just finished residency in Milwaukee in pediatric neurology. I was looking for a job in the education space, and so both of us found jobs here in Austin. I got a job with the Texas Education Agency at the time, and my wife got a fellowship at Dell Children's here. And then we chose Mueller as a neighborhood because everyone just recommended to come here.
So, do you like it?
We've loved Austin thus far. The neighborhood itself has been wonderful. Like our child's daycare, Hassan's daycare is a 5-minute walk from us. HEB is a 5-minute walk. The Thinker is a 5-minute walk. There's 4 parks within a 10-minute radius of us. So like walking, the walking trails, the running trails, everything you want. Our neighborhood mosque that we go to is less than a 5-minute drive. Right here. Yeah. So everything you need, like I don't have to step into a car if I don't need to anytime. So it's been a perfect neighborhood to raise a family and to grow a family in.
I didn't get the numbers for Miller, but I did get the numbers for Austin. There is an estimated 37 million Muslims in the U.S. Yeah. And 1.7% of our population in Austin describes themselves as Muslim. Mm-hmm. By the way, that's more than Lutherans, Episcopalians, and something else. Catholics, way more Catholics because of the Latin influence. But I thought it was funny because I grew up Episcopalian, and there's more Muslims in Austin than there are Episcopalians. And I thought, okay, that lets me know where I am. Yeah. But this, one of the issues in Miller, and we've had some issues in the past about racism. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you haven't really received any of that overtly.
No, I would say I've been really fortunate. Everyone has been very welcoming in our neighborhood. And like our next door neighbor is a deacon of the Catholic Church here in town, and they've been really very friendly, very hospitable. We exchange, when Ramadan comes up, we send them sweets and whatnot, and they give us like cake and whatnot throughout the year as well. So it's been really great. The amount of neighborhood feel that we've had, I think, is very unique to this neighborhood.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And that's part of what we're trying to do, is trying to build that, because our nonprofit was created to foster community.
Yeah.
And it's part of it is the discussion we're having right now, is so more people can get to know you and your background.
Yeah.
Yeah. What one thing would you want people in Miller to know about you and then about Islam?
I think one thing that I always try to share about myself and about Islam, so let me just start with Islam first, is that a lot of times we look at Islam from the outside and say, oh, this is a lot of just like a faith of just rules and regulations, and like these are do's and don'ts, and this is what you have to do, this is what you have to follow. But in actuality, it comes down to your intention and your relationship with God, and realizing that you are here for a very temporary time period, and what you do on this earth you will be held accountable for both your good actions and your the evil actions that you commit as well. And so Islam is not something that is just a bunch of rules and regulations, but it has a deeper purpose to it, and that is the purpose of attaining a fulfillment and living your life in accordance with what God has brought down. God has ordained you to, so that you can become more mindful of God as well. Anything that you do on this earth, you will be held accountable for it. So you become more mindful of your actions. Every action that you do has to have an intention behind it. One of the more famous sayings of the Prophet Muhammad is that every action is judged by the intention. And so it can be possible that you may be doing a lot of really good actions, but if your intention isn't pure behind it, then God is the only one that knows your intention and will raise you according to your intention in life. And likewise, people may criticize you for certain actions that you may do, but if you have a pure intention behind it, then God will reward you for that intention that you do as well. And likewise, as Muslims, the idea isn't that we have to do X, Y, and Z all the time. We try and we strive to do X, Y, and Z, as any Muslim should, or any person in general. But the idea is that you will fall short, and God will talk to you about that every son of Adam. Another popular saying is that every son of Adam is someone who commits mistakes. But the best of the people are the ones that will repent and repent for those mistakes as well. And so the idea is that we all fall short. That sounds
almost Christian.
Yeah. So we all fall short, and we all recognize our own shortcomings. And the idea is that none of us are perfect. God didn't make us perfect. God didn't intend us to be perfect. But the idea is that you should try to live as best as possible, and realize when you make mistakes that you try to become a better human being the next day as well. So. Okay.
Now, one thing about Mubeen.
So I was born Muslim, and faith has been I would say, a vital part of my life. So when I was 12, I enrolled in a seminary in Houston, in which I dedicated to memory the entire Quran, so from cover to cover.
That's 114 chapters?
It's 114 chapters, yeah. It's about, I would say, I think 6,236 verses, and
give or take.
Give or take, yeah. And it's about 4/5 the size of, I think, the New Testament, from what I've been told. I haven't done a comparison analysis. But we actually, this is actually something that's pretty common throughout the Muslim world, is that many millions of people do this. And so it took me about 2.5 years to do. And for the past 20 years or so, specifically during the month of Ramadan, I actually lead prayers at the mosque, in which we go from cover to cover throughout the entire Quran over a period of 30 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whew. Let's see, my numbers, if I get my numbers right, 1.9 billion Muslims in the world.
Yes.
2.4, 2.5 Christians. Mm-hmm. The Muslim tend to concentrate in North Africa, the Middle East, and then down through the islands of the Pacific, Indonesia, and that area.
And South Asia as well.
And South Asia.
Yes.
Okay. Are you a Sunni or a Shiite?
I'm a Sunni.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the Sunnis are like 95% of the Muslim world, and Shiites are about 5 or
Yeah, around 10%.
Okay.
And then Shias around, 90% Sunnis, Shias around 10% or so.
Okay.
Predominantly Shia population, the largest is in Iran. And then you have large pockets in Pakistan, along with Lebanon and elsewhere as well.
Okay. Yeah, and you know, I laugh about, you know, there's only 2 Muslim sects. I mean, how many Christian sects?
So there are more than 2.
Okay.
But generally speaking, like you have, if you just look at Sunnis and Shias itself, you're looking at around 99%. Almost,
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Yeah. Well, you know, Catholic, Protestant. Yeah, that's only 2. No,
Yeah.
well, the Protestants have got, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. And we're all part of the same whole.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your future?
Future, only God knows that. But I think, you know, from a, like on a day in, day out basis, I care more about, you know, raising my children more than anything else, and
Okay.
being able to survive, you know, toddlerhood right now is what our future entails. And but just seeing my kids grow up on a day in, day out basis gives me the greatest joy ever. And my wife and I, like when days are tough and days get long, we remind ourselves that, like, you know, this is just temporary.
This is temporary.
You know, every day or so, there's some tantrum that we have to deal with, and there's some like thing that our daughter may be sick or has some fever or whatnot, and we're like, how long is this gonna last? But this is just temporary, and you realize that like the joy they bring you is the greatest joy that you can't buy with anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, you know, I look forward to them growing up and seeing what they'll accomplish as well. So
I think this is a good neighborhood to grow up in.
yeah.
We tend to spend a lot of time with the older people
Yeah.
in the neighborhood, but I just went to a meeting today where they were talking about the intergenerational, where they have preschoolers in with senior citizens and have the senior citizens reading to the preschoolers,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And that just strikes me as really, you know, it's like the family used to be.
Yeah.
You know, the grandparents would take care of the little kids and read to them and do all that. So, yeah, it makes sense to me. But it's a program of the city of Austin.
Yeah, it's something I actually like observed a lot, because in my summers, my parents used to take us to India, because my parents are originally from India.
Okay.
And over there, the concept of the family is a very joint family system, and that's how so you have 3 generations, sometimes even 4 generations living in the same house.
Wow.
And you know, so my cousins always, you know, make fun of me. They're like, we never have to worry about babysitting, because we already have, there's enough adults that can look after kids. There's enough children that they can play with. It's a very different type of, so I used to love going to India in the summers, because all my cousins would be under one roof, and we just have, you know, it was a slumber party almost every single night.
Wow. Our next door neighbor, they're both professors at the University of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And he is from southern India. His name is George John. I said, come on. He said, you can't pronounce my middle name, but it's George John.
Yeah.
Okay. And we delight. They're just wonderful people. We've
Yeah.
had a great time talking with them. And so, yeah, it's been interesting. Yeah. And his wife is from somewhere in Wisconsin.
Oh.
So, yeah. So your wife is from where?
My wife is from outside of Chicago. So she
Okay.
is originally born in Pakistan, then moved here when she was around 11 months old, grew up outside of Chicago, and then went to medical school in Chicago, went to undergrad and medical school in Chicago, and then residency in Milwaukee. And so
And
when
y'all
we
met
met,
in Milwaukee?
so we met through mutual friends, and then I was working in consulting at the time, and so my job required me to travel. My wife was in her 3rd year of residency, so once we decided to get married, I moved up to Milwaukee for a couple of years so that she could finish up her residency. Yeah.
Okay. And her
So
specialty
she is a specialist in pediatric neurology. So it was a 5-year residency in pediatric neurology, and then she did a 1-year epilepsy here at Dell Children's.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So is she working at Dell?
She works at a private practice here in Austin now.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. This is, just getting to know people and what they're doing, and Austin is such an amazing town. Wow. And I spent a lot of time here in the bicycle world.
Oh, nice.
Doing training people, and I was laughing today downtown at City Hall. I was talking to somebody, and they said something about bicycle safety, and I said, yeah, I had a grant from TxDOT. I didn't. Mm-hmm. The city had a grant from TxDOT, and I worked for them.
Yeah.
And we trained 8,000 4th and 5th graders to ride bikes safely in East Austin.
Oh, wow. Just in East Austin?
In East Austin from 96 to 98.
Oh, my goodness.
So we got every 4th and 5th grader in East Austin. It was such a delight to do that and see the faces light up.
Yeah.
When those kids learn to ride, it's great.
My son just someone gave us a bicycle with training wheels here in the neighborhood, and so through the Buy Nothing program that we have in the neighborhood, I was able to get it, and he was too small at the time when we got it, and so we kept it in the garage, like up in the rack above the garage. And he was always looking at it, being like, I want to ride it, I want to ride it. So one day we took it down, and he started riding it, and he's like, he loves it. So almost every day or every few days we take it out. He just goes for a ride. He loves riding it. He loves riding his scooter.
You still have training wheels on it?
We still have training wheels on it. I'm not sure when we'll take it off, but the goal is to take it off and see whether he can, how much he can go further.
Yeah.
So.
Now interesting. This is one of the areas I'm deeply involved in right now. Have you seen womb bikes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I work with them occasionally on events, and they just had an event here. But the research is there. Take the training wheels off. Get rid of the training wheels. Now, one of the problems is the bike may be too big without the training wheels. Yeah. And when the bike's too big without training wheels, okay, that didn't do any good. But they are learning some of the wrong things with the training wheels. Plus, they don't learn that balance because they are leaning into the training wheel and getting, the wrong stuff. Anyway.
So we had a Strider bike first.
Okay.
We had a scooter, like a mini scooter.
Right.
But that was like a 3-wheel. But then he was on a Strider bike. And that was work? He really loved the Strider bike as well, which is a balanced bike.
Right.
We were going pretty fast on it. Always fighting us to bring it inside the house. So when it got dark, he wanted to ride it inside the house.
Oh, okay.
But then when we got this bicycle and he saw this, he's like, I don't want to do the Strider bike anymore. I want to do this bicycle. Okay. It was funny you brought up Woom because I saw on Mueller Marketplace someone was trying to sell a Woom bicycle.
Woom 2, I think.
Yeah, Woom 2 for, and those bicycles, are not a.
They're not cheap.
They're not cheap, right, by any means. But I was like, hey, I was talking to my wife, like, why don't we get this for Hassan for his for Eid as like a gift? This would be a really good Eid gift, and so we were thinking about it right now. So it just makes us the price tag makes you pause a bit, but
well, think about that's a used bike and it's going for that price. Think what happens when he outgrows it.
Yep.
You get that price, a lot of that price back.
Yeah, and then we can. Well, Sumaya was at 9 months.
Yes.
Pass it down for.
They're putting 18-month-olds on Womb 1s.
Yeah, that's yeah.
So it's anyway. Enough about bicycles. Do you ride?
Yeah, I ride a bicycle. I did the MS 150. I think 2011, 2012. But since then, have been much more of a casual rider. So, and then I have a Burley attachment as well, which I really like. So I put Hassan in there. And then Sumaya is going to get in there in a month or so, and then take them around the neighborhood. So it's a really fun way for them to go on a nice bike ride as well.
Cool. Yeah, I was involved with MS for 30 years. Yeah. I was on the steering committee for the MS 150, and I've ridden it 15 times, twice with a blind man on a tandem.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Well, it was.
Yeah.
It was exhausting.
Yeah.
Because you have to be on. You can't zoom out. You can't fade out. You have to be on all the time. You have to be talking all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So.
And it was exhausting, but it was the greatest thrill. He said, I need somebody to ride with me. And so we went out and rode, and I said, I'll keep riding with you if you'll do the MS-150 with me. He says, what's that? And I said, Houston to Austin. He says, you're crazy. I said, no, it's August. It's not until April. We can make this happen. And he did.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
And he got to the point where he felt comfortable riding and was strong enough that we did it that year and the year after. And that was about when you're talking about 2011, 2012, somewhere in there. So, yeah, that's an amazing ride.
Yeah.
Amazing ride. Does your wife ride?
We have a casual bicycle for her.
Okay.
I think between pregnancies and stuff like that, it hasn't been as but she loves taking the bicycle. As a family, we go out around the neighborhood.
Okay.
So
what part of the neighborhood you live in?
Off of Berkman and Philomena.
Berkman and Philomena.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not far from here.
Yeah.
We go right by there, going to HEB.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want people to know about Islam or Ramadan or Eid? We do have an Eid festival here in Miller.
Yeah.
That is like after the end of Ramadan. So it's very soon after the end of Ramadan. Yeah.
So I think in terms of just Islam itself, I think that, as I mentioned before, fasting is one of 5 pillars that we have in the faith. The first one being, the testimony of faith that there's no deity worthy of worship except God. So understanding that God is a one and only, and so it differentiates from Christianity in that regard. But also realizing that God is the only one that has the power to legislate. God is the only one that has the power to, send down laws and whatnot. And he sent down prophets with divine scriptures as a means to be able to teach us more about God and to recognize him, and that you will be held accountable on the day of judgment for your actions. So that's kind of like how we understand our life to be. And then there's a command to pray. So we pray 5 times a day as Muslims.
What does that look like?
So
you're a business person.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
So we pray 5 times a day to facing towards Mecca, and
that's east
from northeast,
roughly
aeronautical distance. Yeah.
Okay.
But we pray 5 times a day, and it happens at certain periods of the day. So one happens before sunrise. Another one is right after the sun reaches its zenith. The third prayer, Asr, which happens when you're one shadow length away. So your shadow is one length. And then one happens right at sunset, and then one happens when the sun has left the horizon, so at night. So there's 5 daily prayers that we have. We also you are fasting in the month of Ramadan itself. Zakat, which is the pillar to pay 2.5% of your wealth that you have accumulated, and that goes to the poor and the needy. And then the last pillar is Hajj, which is the pilgrimage to Mecca. Okay. What's important about all these is that now someone might say, well, I can't do, how is someone else able to do all this? Well, as a fully able-bodied adult, I fast during the month of Ramadan, but my wife, because she has been nursing and breastfeeding, has not been fasting during the month of Ramadan. My son, who was 3 years old, doesn't fast during the month of Ramadan. He asks me every morning, Baba, are you fasting or whatnot? And then I say, yeah, I'm fasting. And I was like, are you fasting? He's like, no. And then I say, well, are you going to be fasting? He's like, yeah, when I get big, I'll start fasting. Okay. So people who are elderly, people who are chronically ill are not required to fast. So for example, not everyone is fasting, only those who are fully bodied, able to be able to fast. Similarly with zakat, if you do not have the means to pay zakat or to give charity, then you are not required to give charity. You are excused from giving charity. Similarly for Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca, if you don't have the means to go for Hajj, then you are not required to go for Hajj, and therefore you are excused. The only pillar that everyone can fall under beyond someone who is not sane is the pillar of prayer. Okay. So required to pray 5 times a day at certain times. For example, if you are not able to stand up and pray, then you sit down and pray. For example, even if you are not able to sit down and pray, then you lie down and pray. When my dad was in the hospital, he would lie down and pray because he was not able to sit up. And even, so much that people who are not even able to move any of their body, but can simply just move an index finger can pray like that, or can move their eyes and pray like that as well. And that goes to the idea that remembering God at all times and throughout the day, to be someone who is remembering the fact that we were created here for a purpose, and that purpose is to worship God and serve His creation. And then I think that is what encapsulates our faith as Muslims. But then much deeper in Ramadan itself, because that's the month that we're in, is that Ramadan is not just a month of removing yourself from eating and drinking, but it actually is to be able to, for example, in one saying, the Prophet says that if you get into an argument or a quarrel with someone, then it's better for you to just step away and just say, I'm fasting. And what's beautiful about this is that when you haven't eaten for the entire day and someone wants to argue with you at 6:30 and you're about to break your fast at 7:30, you really don't have the energy to start an argument at that time. So you can just say, look, I'm fasting. Let me, and it goes to show that it's to make you a better human being. It's to make you a better person. It's to give away your vices that you have, that you've, maybe have had throughout the year, and so that you become a better human being after the month of Ramadan than when you started the month of Ramadan. And so it's not just a hunger game, but it's actually like a self improvement mechanism. So we start off the day with a small meal before the dawn, and then sometimes my mom would give us pizza as a means to encourage us to fast. But right now I'm just like on water and dates, usually in the morning. And then, going throughout the day.
That was one of the things I read was dates.
Yeah, dates is a popular superfood. It was also somewhat custom of the Prophet Muhammad to have dates because he was in the desert, and it's actually something that provides a lot of nutrient as well. So we break our fast with dates and water as well. And then we have a meal at sunset. And then we also go to the mosque at night. So a lot of people will spend an hour to 2 hours at the mosque every single night. That is where I lead prayers. I lead prayers at the mosque here on Nuwaisi Street, right by UT campus. So I've been doing that for the past 3 years since I've been living in Austin, is reading the entire Quran by memory from at night. So I review during the day, and then at night I read the entire Quran by memory. There's a team of us that we do that, so we take turns. Wow. So yeah, it's an intense month. By no means do Muslims are expected to do this throughout the rest of the year. That's why God has said this is just a limited number of days, and it's to make you a better person, to make you more mindful of God, so that you grow in your relationship with Him. And Muslims do fast throughout, not just within Ramadan itself, but actually throughout the year. So it's customary for Muslims to fast on Mondays and Thursdays as a means to be able to kind of rejuvenate themselves and realize the benefits of fasting. One of the things that's often overlooked in fasting is the idea that fasting is the only type of worship that is done, or the only act of devotion that is done, that is strictly very personal to the human being, to the individual himself or herself. And the reason I say that is that I could tell you I'm fasting, but there's no way for you to guarantee that I'm actually fasting. I could have had like a Big Mac on the way here, and you would not know whether I was fasting or not. And the reason
it's the mayonnaise in your ear.
So, but the idea is that this is something that is between you and God. It's actually what we say is that this is a secret between you and God in some ways. That God is the only one that knows whether you truly fasted or not. And therefore God says that every action the son of Adam does has a reward for it. But the action of fasting is something that God has withheld for himself and will reward you for it on the day of judgment. Mm-hmm. And so he says, the Prophet Muhammad says that the son of Adam receives two joys when fasting. The one is when he breaks his fast because he realizes he's very grateful for the food that he has. But then the second reward that he gets is for the reward that he gets for the reward of breaking, the reward of fasting, and that is given by God himself. Because God alone knows whether you fasted or not, and that actually shows the sincerity of your fast, is that you only did it for God. Because if you were doing it for other people or to show off, you would just go and eat somewhere else. But the fact that you were doing it strictly for God is that you withheld yourself from everything, from food and drink throughout the day, because of your devotion, even when you were secretly by yourself, that you were still fasting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to finish this up, but one of the things you said just intrigued me, and I want to dig into it later at some point. You said there's 5 times you fast during the day.
5 times we pray.
5 times you pray, I'm sorry. 5 times you pray. And one of them is when your shadow is one length.
Yeah.
And to think about the creation of that one thing.
Yeah.
You know, that your shadow is the same size as you are.
Yeah.
And that's a time for you to pray. And there's something really powerful in that.
Yeah.
And it just struck me that, I can see that.
Yeah,
Because you are one with the sun and one with the universe at that point, where your shadow is the same length as you are. You know?
Yeah, throughout the day, like Muslims have to be mindful about when the sun comes up and when the sun is at its zenith and when the sun is one shadow length and when the sun goes down. The joke is that Muslims generally, like especially at sunset, we're like, throughout the rest of the year we're like, it's probably around 7:30, 7:40, or when the days are shorter. But then when Ramadan comes up, we actually know exactly to the minute and the second that the sun will set. And you are encouraged to break your fast as soon as possible. You are not encouraged to try to be some macho man. You are encouraged to actually drink water or eat till the dawn appears. This isn't an idea to be some type of you're not a super gladiator. You're actually here fulfilling a purpose by God, and not to try to do some type of super feat that God has not required you to do so by any means.
Okay. Well, this has been great, and it's. I hope we have a chance to get to spend time together in the future.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Because it's just, it's part of what we're trying to do in Miller, is to get people to know each other and to get together and to enjoy the differences, celebrate the differences.
Yeah, more than anything, I think this conversation has led to is the fact that everyone has unique stories, and the fact that 2 neighbors came together to share 2 different backgrounds about themselves and to learn more about each other. God says in the Quran, so, O mankind, we have created you into males and females and created you into nations and tribes, so that you may get to know one another, not so that you may despise one another.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, and then he says, indeed, the most honorable among you is those who are most God conscious, and that God is all aware of what you do. And so that kind of appeal to the idea that we should get to know one another, we should break bread with one another. One of the things that we are encouraged to do as Muslims is to share food and to feed people. And so the idea that the Prophet says is that no one amongst you is a believer who goes to sleep with his belly full while his neighbor is hungry.
Okay.
So the idea that you should be given to your neighbors, your neighbors have a right over you, and that are you fulfilling that right? And so the only way you get to know your neighbors is by sitting down with them and getting to know them as well.
One of the things we like to say is when I meet you, never seen you before today, meet you, there's something I can learn from you if I'm curious enough to learn it.
Yeah.
And if I can do it that way instead of judging you because your skin is darker than I am and you've got a better beard than I am, or those kind of things, and you're a Muslim, I can learn so much from you. And boy, what I've learned here this afternoon is amazing. And that works better.
Yeah. No, definitely. We should have a reverse podcast where I'm asking the questions and I can learn more from you as well.
Well, I think it makes sense to do that somewhere along the way. It's just, let me tell you about the way I grew up Episcopalian in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. You know? And it's very different than how you grew up.
Community. Speaking about community, one of the great things that like we've had, especially in Ramadan, is the idea that we met our first year here. We met a few Muslim families, and so last year we actually did a Ramadan iftar here in the park at Branch Park.
Okay.
And just put up on Facebook, and a number of people were like, we didn't even know there are other Muslims in Mueller, and like everyone got together and we had iftar, which is the meal that you break your fast with. At Branch Park in 2022, and this year we had it right here at Jesse Andrews Park here at
Jesse
Octopus
Andrews
Park.
with Ocho.
And we had it here, and so you find that, and every year we meet new neighbors that have moved to this neighborhood and are so happy to meet other Muslims around here. One of the neighbors we met, who's literally become like an adopted family member of us, she lives in the Overture Apartments, which is the 55 plus, and now she's become like an adopted grandmother and adopted mother.
That's great.
So anytime, especially when my wife was pregnant and she went into labor, I immediately called Khadija and was like, hey, can you come over? I have to take Sarah to the hospital, and can you help put Hassan to sleep? And she immediately dropped everything, came over.
Oh, that's great.
She comes over whenever we need any help, and it's just because of the iftar that we had, we were able to make so many friends from that. And Mueller allows that to happen because of the parks and because of the neighborhood as well.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
This is
Appreciate
really
it
amazing.
as well. Likewise.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to putting up and see what kind of comments we get.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
Definitely.
but I like the idea of doing the other side.
Yeah.
So let's think about that and see how that could work.
Yeah, definitely.
How we can make that work.
Yeah.
Well, that was pretty special. I really had a great time talking with Mubeen. Hope you enjoy what we had to say and look forward to seeing you in the future. If you want to get notifications, make sure you subscribe down below and click like, and we'll get more of these up. So thank you and have a great day.